Hello and welcome to the pod. I'm Nathan Fink.
I'm Joelyn Drennan, and this is New Hampshire Family Now,
a show about building family in the Granite State. Today on the season finale of the pod, Joelyn reflects and resolves. We have a surprise visitor, and Susan Stearns, Deputy Director of NAMI New Hampshire, joins us to celebrate eggnog and 40 long years of dedication and impact. New Hampshire Family Now is brought to you by the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Since 1962, the Charitable Foundation has worked hand in hand with generous and visionary citizens to maximize the power of giving and support, collaborate, and lead innovative initiatives. Initiatives like New Hampshire Tomorrow, which is focused on making sure children and families have access to education, healthcare, and career pathways to ensure every family member thrives. To learn more about New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and all their initiatives, go to www.nhcf.org. This podcast was also brought to you by Family Support New Hampshire. Family Support New Hampshire is NH's coalition of family resource centers and family strengthening programs that exist to ensure Granite State families have access to resources so both caregivers and children can succeed, because supported families are strong families. To find a family resource center near you, visit www.fsnh.org. Hello and welcome to the final show of the year. We'll be back Wednesday, February 2nd for the release of Season 2. So until then, catch up on Season 1 at www.nhchildrenstrust.org/NHFN. That's New Hampshire Family Now. And I couldn't be happier to welcome Joelyn Drennan back to the show, our last show of the year. Last chance to right past wrongs, make amends, and also last chance to say things we regret. It seems like this last year we've been living in the shadow of 2020. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You can see the other side of things.
And I feel like we should all be just like opening the door to 2022 with like a 10-foot pole. Like, yeah. What's in there? Like, everyone get behind me.
No, don't worry about it. It's just Josh Groban trying to break into our hearts. A few episodes ago, I had a home visitor come to my house to help me think through some challenges. And she asked me what I was proud of. And I want to know from you, what are you most proud of in 2021? And maybe it's better to think of this in categories. What are you most proud of professionally? What are you most proud of as a parent? And what are you most proud of as a partner?
Okay, so professionally, I think I'm most proud of so I guess what I realized this year is that even though the work was really hectic and challenging at times, just even over the past 2 years, we'll say, that I'm proud of my commitment to this work. Like, this working at the Children's Trust is not just a job for me. This is my life's work, my mission. This is why I, aside from my family, this is why I wake up in the morning, is to come here and see your face, Nathan. is really because I believe in our mission and am really excited every time I see like the impact of the work that we're doing. And it just makes me want to keep on going. And so I think that's probably my proudest. That's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. How about as a parent?
As a parent, I have a really good group of friends that are also parents that are good sounding boards. And so like nurturing that group of friends, and, I've got 4 people that I can say, hey, like, what's going on? Does this sound weird? How should I handle this? Mm-hmm. And so I think that being vulnerable as a parent.
What about as a partner?
As a partner, I think I'm really proud of the way my husband and I, we have each other's backs, and just as an example of that is Wiley lost a tooth last night. And also we have the elf on the shelf. And so I forgot to handle both of those things. But when I woke up this morning in a panic, my husband had taken care of it. And so that was really cool. And it was like such relief, because I would have been like walking around with mom guilt all day.
You should have just put that empty bottle of wine on the shelf next to the elf. We're talking about this professionally parent and partner. And, it's funny because I asked you to separate those out into categories. But when I think about it, I'm like, man, those circles are really tightly concentric for me. And maybe too, when you were just talking about professionally, that realization that this is who you are.
Yeah, it's all full circles. Because of the work that we do, I can recognize like the protective factors in my own life, and I make an effort to strengthen those myself. That's really important. And knowing that I'm providing that to others in my personal and professional life is, right. I think that's really important to me.
Yeah.
How about the dreaded New Year's resolutions? Because I wonder about these because I resent them. Do you have any?
I don't typically make New Year's resolutions, but I use this time of year to kind of be thoughtful about what I would like to accomplish or do less of. And so for this year, I am, I'm trying to get back into running so that I can run in a half marathon in March with my friend, the same friend who wanted me to go into the Amazing Race with her.
Speaking of follow through, how'd that go?
It didn't. No, but so yes, I want to be really focused on training for this half marathon. So yeah, and that'll be some form of self-care because I'm going to have to take time out to actually commit to training and then doing.
Let's see. I don't know that. Well, no, I have some things that I've been thinking about. So my wife follows this teen confidence coach on Instagram, and this guy did a segment I thought was interesting about how we are taught a have, do, be mindset. Like if I could only have this, then I could do that. And then I will be who I want to be. But what he was saying is this is completely backwards. Really, if we be the person we want to be, we will do the things we'd like to do and we will have the things we'd like to have. It reverses it and puts character at the middle. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh.
I love that.
Don't you love it? But I can't believe how clearly that reverses the mindset that we're in or taught to have.
Yeah.
Be, do, have. And I also think about it in terms of my kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, let's put character at the middle.
Maybe I'll take yours. I'll take your resolution because yours sounds a lot better than mine.
Well, yours was good.
Yours is about character. Mine is about,
Yeah, you're about, I want to train for this marathon. No.
You're character building. I'm just like being dragged to a race.
No, I mean, I think that's the advantage of being like, I planned some more on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? I never know when I'm going to be on here. So.
Joelyn, I'm so thrilled to have you back on the season finale of season 1. Thank you so much for being on. Wait, what was that? Did you hear that? Hold on.
It's Josh! Oh, Joelyn, it's Josh Groban. He brought his whole symphony. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, holy night, so pretty. The stars are bright. Joelyn, you gotta wrap this up. Josh, take me with you.
Well, thank you for this. This has been great.
And when we come back, Susan Stearns, Deputy Director of NAMI New Hampshire, joins us. Don't go anywhere. Today's show was also brought to you by the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock and the Child Advocacy and Protection Program, a multidisciplinary program with the Children's Hospital established to evaluate and provide integrative care to suspected victims of child maltreatment. Together, a team of physicians, advanced practice registered nurses, social workers, nurses, and child life specialists work to provide consultation and evaluations of children who are suspected victims of abuse, so to serve in the best interest of children and families at multiple levels of prevention. For more information about Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock and the Child Advocacy Protection Program, visit www.chadkids.org/child-advocacy. New Hampshire Family Now is a proud participant in the Your Voice campaign. Together, the Parent Information Center, New Hampshire Family Voices, and New Hampshire Children's Trust have launched a statewide campaign dedicated to celebrating the critical role family voice plays in shaping services and systems throughout the Granite State. Because questions families ask and the information they share often makes a difference in understanding a diagnosis, building an effective treatment plan, and informing the services they use every day. To learn more about the campaign, go to nhchildrenstrust.org/yourvoice or picnh.org/yourvoice. And headlining our season 1 finale is Susan Stearns, Deputy Director of NAMI New Hampshire. Susan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Nate. I'm so happy to be here.
2 questions to get things moving because it's the holiday season. 1, what is the status of your shopping? And how divisive is eggnog in your household?
Well, I'll take the second part of that question to say it is quite unifying in our household. And actually that we have, it's our one sweet thing we agree on, that we all like to have eggnog in the holiday season. So.
See, to me, it's threatening my marriage because Jenny will want to go Christmas light looking and I'll be like, I can't, eggnog and I are watching a movie. So Susan, I really do appreciate you coming on, jokes aside, and thank you for all the work you're doing to elevate mental health awareness throughout the Granite State.
Well, thank you for all your work.
So NAMI New Hampshire is approaching its 40th year, and which is, if I'm not mistaken, that's the Ruby anniversary, in case people want to send small gifts. But 40 years is quite some time. So I'm wondering how your organization has changed over the years.
Well, obviously, we've grown tremendously. So we were incorporated 40 years ago, but we were actually started a few years before that, in 1978, at the kitchen table of our founder, Peggy Straw. And in her words, she founded NAMI New Hampshire to help 6 hurting families. And today, we have gone from that volunteer-led organization around the kitchen table to having 53 employees, over 200 volunteers statewide, and we served 40,000 people last year. And that's not counting our website traffic, which brings us up over 145,000. So it is an incredible thing that Peggy, our second president, Rona Purdy, and then our third, Rick Sherman, these women created here. But I often say we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Oh, that's amazing. And I mean, 40 years, it's not just the organization grows, because it grows to meet, obviously, a growing need. Over those 40 years, in your experience, how has our perception in the state or as a culture changed of mental and behavioral health challenges?
Well, that's a great question, Nate, because when Peggy and our founders started NAMI New Hampshire, we were still facing a psychiatric world where illnesses like schizophrenia were blamed on what was called a schizophrenic mother. It was bad parenting. And what our founders really strove for was that recognition that mental illness is a brain disorder. These are brain disorders, that they are health conditions like any other health condition that require a scientific response and evidence-based practices. So we have seen this evolution. I think, I don't want to say that no one blames parents anymore for the outcomes of their children. But certainly in the scientific realm, there's no longer this diagnosis of this caused by their schizophrenic mother. And indeed, we are seeing far more acceptance from the clinical realm of how important having family and natural supports is for anyone's recovery process. We may not all have families that are the most nurturing and best for us, but creating those other natural supports to sort of be that family, whether it be biological or not, is really important to all of our mental health. We need those natural supports in order to be healthy and really to function at our best.
Yeah, it seems like then, I mean, what you said about the parenting, about the blame and the thought process around bad parenting, I'd like to think of myself as being receptive to, most thought processes and being able to like internally battle the stigmas that I feel. And, I'm wondering about that because I can't escape that attachment to blame finding when it comes to, like neurodivergence of my son or different, diagnoses where I'm looking first and foremost at what I did wrong. And I'd love to follow up on that because I don't quite know how to process that other than these are my sons. This is my responsibility. And what did I do to cause this particular thing? And that's just my natural response.
And it's completely normal. I don't know a parent who doesn't look at their parenting and they think, oh, somehow I've done this wrong and I've caused this. And certainly I've raised a child with a serious emotional disturbance who's now an adult. I look back and I think, why did I do that? Why didn't I step in and stop that? But I also recognize that I have been my child's fiercest advocate. And my child would not be as successful as they are today had I not been that. So I know no parent is perfect and I'm far from perfect, but I also know that, every day my feet hit the floor with the idea, even today, of what can I do to advocate for my kids and for other people's kids, and try and make sure that folks have better outcomes. And we're learning all the time. Truthfully, I look back at some of the choices I made with my kid, and I was following advice from educators, from medical providers, and today I think, I wish I'd questioned that more. But I did absolutely the best that I could with the information I had.
Yeah. How do you look at each new day as a new opportunity to progress toward that advocate as, for your child? Because, let's say, you're coming home late from work, you got these things, you make that choice about the day before and you think, ooh, I wasn't my best self there. And then you kind of have to reckon with it. And do you reckon with it by going into that deeper shame spiral? Or do you reckon with it and by backing up and saying, hey, let's look at the way I did that. What caused that in me? And how can I move forward? How do you not look back with regret?
I think it is that piece of trying to analyze and look forward and make those choices going forward. And as I advocate in the system for other folks, a lot of the work that we do at NAMI New Hampshire is helping people develop their own advocacy skills, whether it's for themselves or for a loved one. So, I have that bonus in my life. But I really think, I think the mark of a good parent is probably the one that spends a lot of time looking back and beating themselves up. And you have to stop it because you can't change that, right? Mm-hmm. But you absolutely want to look at what can I do to make a different choice tomorrow? And also, how can I break some patterns? Because we get into these dances with our own children, especially when you've got kids that have challenges. My kid to this day, the two of us, we can push each other's buttons better than anyone I know. Okay. And so that has been a huge thing for both of us, even though he's an adult, to be able to step back and say, okay, let's not do this dance from when you were 8. Yeah. It really isn't helpful for us. So I think, being mindful that those are all really natural ways that humans react, and really trying to look forward. You can feel sometimes despair if you let yourself dwell in those things that you think perhaps you could have done differently. And the other thing is, as your children reach the point of being of an age to talk about it. And I think it's helpful for them as they're, reaching young adulthood to talk about I do wish I had done this differently or made these different choices.
Maybe like a teaching opportunity where even in the moment, that's really interesting advice, because it's like, gosh, if I have, I was a mess the night before, say, made some choices I regret, actually being open about, hey, this is where I wish I landed on that.
Well, how do our kids learn about how we model? And so we also need to be able to model, it's healthy and helpful to question afterwards, to analyze, to determine how could I have done something different and better? Because that's how life rolls. I mean, whether it's parenting or anything else, that you make choices that you need to assess, I didn't like the outcome on that one. What could I have done differently?
Yeah. It reminds me of the movie Elf, which of course is everywhere now. You remember that scene where he's in the elevator and he pushes all of the buttons of the 80 floors? That's how I sometimes feel with my kids, just being lit up and then having to deal with it stopping at every floor. There also seems to be a growing awareness around suicide and suicide prevention, hence your Connect program, which I had taken, and I think it's fantastic and would recommend it to anyone. And really a growing awareness around loss in general. And given the environment that we've been in the last few years, what can families do if they find themselves in a situation where they're facing a loss or they're even fearful of a potential loss?
It's another great question, Nate, and a really hard one. We all have, grief is the price of love, and we all face that, whether it's the loss of a loved one or even the loss of a beloved family pet, something that, children may be facing early on. And it's so important to be kind to yourself when you're dealing with that kind of loss, and to recognize how, incredibly difficult, often traumatic it is. And also that it's exhausting. And I say this from personal experience, having gone through some significant losses, including this year. I'm always struck by, because I'm sort of okay, you got the things to do. And so, a loss usually leads to all the things you have to do, right? And I'm so struck every time I go through this of my goodness, I'm absolutely physically exhausted, even though I may have just spent the entire day on the phone notifying people, talking to, folks, making arrangements, and it's literally exhausting. So to take that step back on the self-care piece, to recognize that it is both mentally and physically taxing, and truly be kind to yourself in that process. And also, it's really hard right now. It's hard in the face of 800,000 folks that we've lost to COVID, to then, even if you're going through a loss that's not COVID related, it's compounded, it feels like. And I was just having this conversation with someone who had a loss not COVID related, but how it seemed to feel another weight of enormity at this time. And I think we have to just acknowledge it's a time of profound loss for so many.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Actually, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I just realized that last night I was having this great debate. As you know, I lost my brother to suicide about 2 years ago. And I was going through some of his personal effects that my mother had given me, but just a box of stuff. And I opened it up and it was all of his socks. And I'm sitting there on the floor going, I don't want these. And then there was this internal battle I was having with myself. What does that mean for my relationship to this person? You know, obviously I love him, but then I'm looking at these socks thinking, do I have to keep these things? And what does it mean to keep these? Because am I demonstrating that I don't love him if I don't keep these socks? And there's all this bargaining and excuses. I wound up keeping them.
And, you know, I think that's a great example of the kinds of things that we find ourselves dealing with after a tremendous loss like that. And those mundane things that suddenly, I mean, who would have ever thought, 3 years ago, you'd be agonizing over what to do with a box of socks, right? And yet it's, again, a normal reaction. So it makes you feel any better. My mother died in 2003. I have just this year, so my eldest lives down in Nashville and has a recent new life partner, which is great news. I'm very happy. And I always pack off a box of, when they're not coming home for the holidays on the day, a box of stocking stuffers. So I did a box of stocking stuffers for the new partner. And I thought, well, I don't have a stocking for the new partner. So I went and I looked and I still had my mother's Christmas stocking. And I will tell you, so my mother died in 2003. I had to sit and look at it for 10 minutes before I said, no, Mom would want me to not just hang on to this Christmas stocking. And, my eldest was beloved grandchild to my mom. And I thought, Charlie's so happy now with their partner. This is the way to go. So off it went to Tennessee. But that was that took me a long time to get there, Nate. So
yeah, no. It's just so interesting that you say that, though, because the thing that I'm working on is how to keep this person alive and how to actually have to look at that maybe stocking more often than you would look at it otherwise. I think it also kind of segues really to, I guess, the person that I'm trying to be, and which around the holidays, obviously we've got, you've got to make your New Year's resolutions. And so I just wanted to know if you have any recommendation or advice for people. How do we encourage our own mental wellness, mental health, and the mental health of those around us going into, say, this new year? What are things we can do?
Some of the things are the most basic things. And I think during this COVID period, and now we're facing this surge here in New Hampshire right now, it's really important to remember that, first of all, don't set your bar so high that you're always feeling like you never get there, right? And sometimes right now you want to start with some real simple things. And I think especially here in New Hampshire, it gets really easy to do things like, especially getting dark at 4:00 in the afternoon. Get outside in the sun every day. These basic things. And I'm not talking like, oh, you have to, run 5 miles, but I'm talking even if you can just get outside, get some sun. I think that exercise piece we know is important, but I think we get hung up on that whole mindset around, this source says I got to do 20 minutes of vigorous exercise every day, or this one says I should do 40 minutes 3 times a week to avoid getting Alzheimer's when I'm older. So my mother died of Alzheimer's, so that's why I know that one. But those are the traps we fall into, right? And I always advise people, you know what? Try to move for 10 minutes. Just set your bar low enough, something that you can achieve, you will. And I have even done it. I'm going to walk around my kitchen while I'm cooking dinner or waiting for something to get done. And just if the day has gotten away from me and I haven't gotten any exercise in, I just try and do those, 10 minutes or so. Another really big one, and I think it's important too, especially when we're raising teens, is, we talk all the time about, good sleep hygiene. I mean, at least I read about it all the time, and people say, go to bed at regular times, do all these things. And, I think a lot of us see with teens that they'll do this, burn the midnight oil all night long, and we don't want to know what they're doing online probably, or we do, and we look away. But sleep deprivation is torture. It is literally used as torture. And studies on sleep deprivation find that 100% of the participants develop depression. The whole sleep conversation is in some ways to me one of the most important ones that we can have with our kids, because there is really no way to feel good if you are constantly sleep deprived, which again, I caution people, don't set this bar. Oh gosh, I'm having insomnia now, like I'm doing something wrong. But, do what you can. Those things, yeah. I know someone who made a huge difference. Doesn't let the phone in the bedroom. Just doesn't let the phone in the bedroom. What are those things that are your triggers? For me, it is not using the phone. And I'm a reader. If I don't read, I think because it helps my mind slip away from the day. I may just read for a couple minutes and start to doze off. But, if I don't read, I don't even sleep as well. So we all know there are things that probably help us. But that's really important. And again, that being kind to yourself and thinking about it's not a new, better me that I'm trying to set the stage for. I'm trying to set the stage for a me that feels well, right? Right. Because if we feel well, then we're better able to take care of our kids and do all those things that life is demanding of us. And when we don't do that, the oxygen mask analogy, if we don't put that oxygen mask on first, then we're not going to be able to be really helpful to the people who need us.
I've also noticed something since we lost my brother. When I think of somebody, when they pop into my head, because people pop in and out of your head all the time, I've made a concerted effort to send them a text or something like that, just to reach out, just say, hey, just thought of you. And getting a response back has been really affirming to me. And I think, that's about me, but then I also think about others, that connection piece. Is there any recommendation you would have about those other people in your life that may not be teens, that may be colleagues, that, maybe your own parents, anything that we can do that can help create more nurturing wellness environments for others that may be in that position?
Well, I think you just named it, is those connections and reaching out. It's amazing what a difference it does make when someone does get that reach out, in terms of how you're helping them, you're nurturing them. And it can be, especially as we see right now with this increasing infection rates, maybe you want to reach out to a neighbor that may be considered at higher risk, is more anxious about going out, going to go to the market. Can I get you anything? Those kinds of things, just making sure folks are not isolated. That has as I think you're finding, not only are you helping other folks in your life, it helps you, because that's something, when we do that, when we do help people, we're getting connected with someone. Two, we physically feel better when we help people. That is a payoff for us. Yeah. And that's why people are so generous with their time and their resources, because it makes them feel good. Right.
It's true. It's like a dopamine surge. All of a sudden I think of somebody, then I think of them, and I think of them almost kind of like purely outside of tasks and obligations. And at the end of the day, it always comes back to, the self.
No, absolutely. It's part of the social compact, really, right? Mm-hmm. It's why we live in society, so that we can help each other, and then that helps us in turn. So, but definitely maintaining those connections, they're so important. And I think we found that during a pandemic, it's hard, but we've also found we have a lot of tools, like you described, texting, the FaceTiming, all sorts of, and I probably receive more handwritten notes during this, since COVID began, than I did prior, which is a kind of neat phenomenon. I see not long, lengthy letters, but, where someone's just jotted off a card and sent it to me. And I try to do that. We have the tools, and we know that it benefits everyone.
So we are coming up on a new year. What is exciting in the NAMI New Hampshire world? What's on the horizon?
I want to first put out there, NAMI New Hampshire, still, we are offering all of our support groups and education programs right now. They're virtual, which has the benefit of, it doesn't matter where in the state they're being hosted from. So pre-COVID, if you were looking for, say, our next family to family education program, which is an 8-session program for folks who have an adult loved one living with mental illness. So that's a great opportunity. And we've expanded some of those. We also offer similar education programs for individuals who are living with mental illness themselves, called peer-to-peer, one for parents and caregivers of kiddos with mental health challenges, NAMI Basics. we have the education programs, our support groups, our Connect Suicide Prevention Program, and we do a lot of one-on-one support for families raising kiddos with mental health challenges, for families of adults, also for adults themselves living with mental health challenges, and of course for survivors of suicide loss. Those are all important things, I think, for folks to know right now. As we come into the new year, legislative session starting. So we have an It's Your Move advocacy training series starting up. That's on our website. Folks can register for that. It's free. There's an It's Your Move 1.0, It's Your Move 2.0. The first really helps you develop some basic advocacy skills. And the second really on how to advocate in the legislature. And then we're excited as we look forward to the state is implementing several new programs. They're looking to expand services for individuals, usually that's young adults, experience a first episode of psychosis and early serious mental illness. That will be expanding statewide in the coming year. We are offering an anti-stigma and public awareness campaign. So if folks are interested in that, they can check out the anti-stigma campaign at 603stories.org. Always looking for submissions for that, so people can check that out. And then we also are here in New Hampshire about to see, and it will be nationwide, this radical change in our response to mental health crises. Folks may have heard that come next July, nationally, there'll be a new 988 number for people to call in a mental health crisis. That's not till July. And in preparation for that, the state is setting up a single access point number, and that number will be released for January 1st, and where folks can call if they're experiencing a mental health crisis or their loved one is. And so there'll be one number to call, the opportunity to have a mobile crisis team dispatched statewide, because right now we just have them in certain communities, and a number of layers of rapid response that can be available for folks. And so we do have a webinar coming up on January 27th to learn more about the access point and the rapid response plan. So if folks want to check that out, the registration will be up on our website soon.
So if somebody finds themselves in crisis or a loved one in crisis, are there any current lines that they can call now?
Absolutely. The state has 10 community mental health centers. Every one of them offers emergency services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And actually, those websites will be updated with the new access point number. So check out your local community mental health center for emergency services. Anyone can contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 1-800-273-8255. I'd encourage folks to even put that in their cell phones. I can't tell you how often I have told people that they should put it in their cell phone, and they've later come to me and said, that was a great idea. I had it right there, and someone needed the number. You can call that number, of course, if you're feeling any thoughts of suicide, but you can call it if you're worried about someone and get assistance. For folks who are service members, veterans and their families, is a veterans crisis line. You call that same number, the 1-800-273-8255. And if you press 1, your call is going to be responded to by a veteran, someone who will really understand your experiences. In addition, in this modern world, the crisis text line offers the same type of support via text. You just have to text to, the number is 741-741 from anywhere in the United States, and you'll be connected with a trained crisis counselor. And then finally, for LGBTQ youth, which is a population that's really at increased risk of suicide, there is the Trevor Project, which is an incredible resource. I encourage people to check out their website. It's just full of great information. But they also have a number that folks can call 24/7, and it's 1-866-488-2386. And it's the Trevor Project. Definitely check them out. They also have texting capability as well.
Well, I so appreciate you coming on the show, Susan. It's always great to see you. And I'm really hoping that you can come back after the first of the year to talk about that single access point for those folks that are either in crisis or have loved ones in crisis. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
It's great to be here.
To learn more about NAMI New Hampshire and all of their programs, go to www.naminh.org. That's NAMINewHampshire.org. Many thanks to New Hampshire's Office of Social and Emotional Wellness for sponsoring this podcast. Started within New Hampshire's Department of Education, the Office of Social and Emotional Wellness consolidates policy development and implements projects and programs that are focused on health and wellness with an emphasis on behavioral health of all students, youth, and families. To learn more about the Department of Education and its many programs and approaches, visit www.education.nh.gov. New Hampshire Family Now is listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or ask your smart speaker to play New Hampshire Family Now.